Hey everybody, welcome to my shop. Today we're taking this slab and turning it into the ridge sign. Came up with a couple of slabs from a friend who wanted me to surface them both and turn one of them into a sign. So this first one was pretty straightforward. I was able to wedge it onto the spoil board and just clear it off pretty straightforward. Flip it over, clear off the other side. So the other one though presented a little bit more of a challenge. For this, I am using my 2-inch magnate carbide surfacing bit. That is a monster of a bit and does a great job at clearing away some material. So this one, a little bit bigger. These were chainsaw cut, so it was a real rough cut. As you can see, I've got to wedge that up. I'm about an inch high on each end. And as I started looking at it, I didn't have enough room with my spoil board on. So I had to take my spoil board off, take off my vacuum table, and just to make sure I didn't get sawdust in my vacuum ports, I covered those with some paper, put it on there. I had to figure an interesting way to clamp this, so I actually used my vertical vise to hold a 2x4 that I was able to wedge in place against a clamp that I screwed into one of my vacuum table threaded inserts. Level it out, try to level it out, go back and forth with it a little bit. Eventually I got it level, and then it got to where I, moment of truth, check and see if it's going to fit under the machine. Documented all my heights and then checked real close, and as you can see there, I had at least 1.5 millimeters of room to spare. So yes, it was extremely close to hitting my gantry, but I was able to make it fit. I took really close documentations of all the different height measurements and locations on the machine. So what I'm doing here now is I'm moving the machine to where the points are, and then I made a program that encompassed all those points. So after that, I get the surfacing bit back on, zero it out, make sure that I'm right where I need to be. From there, it's just a matter of running the program. Now, I had to actually run this program several times because of how much I had to take off. I took kind of a conservative approach. I didn't want to take too much off, so I built it in, I think, 1/2-inch increments. And so I took several passes at, I believe I'm going 0.2 deep here, and got to where, okay, I can measure and see here, I need to take about half of my program off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down to where I touch off, and then I'm going to raise it halfway back up so I don't have to alter the program. And then I can just hit run again. And while I'm running, the great thing about CNC is while it's working, even though it's just cutting air now, it's getting down to where it will cut, I can bring the minions in and they can help me clean up. It's always good to have a little bit of help around the shop, but sometimes these guys charge a little bit more than I can afford and have to do it myself. So now that we're getting down into this, we're actually cutting down to where it's getting that surface flat. And so we're going to be able to flip this over and surface the other side. This thing was at 7 inches thick when I started because of that rough cut chainsaw. So now we're going to just, a lot easier to get this side because we don't have to level it. It's already leveled to the board. You just wedge it in place. And whenever you do a wedge on a job like this, just keep an eye on those wedges, make sure they stay in place. I'm not worried about this thing flying off, but if it starts wandering too much, it's going to cause some problems. I'm going to have to redo some of the work. So I send it running. It trims down really well. What you're seeing in the upper left corner at this point is actual speed. This is not being sped up. I am cutting that at 600 inches per minute, 0.2 of an inch deep per pass, and 1 inch wide on the pass. So I'm cutting 50% step over on this. Make sure you're where your machine needs to be. As you notice, I tightened those shims up there a little bit. They started to wobble. Now, that upper left corner or lower left as far as the video is concerned. There was a thin point there, and I wanted to work that in, but I wanted to leave it as thick as possible. So I did reach out to my friend who had contracted this, and he said, yeah, cut it out, get it a little bit thinner to where that surface is all level. So I did go a couple more passes to get that flat. And the great thing about this is it's, at this point, both sides are perfectly coplanar. You don't have to worry about snipe on either edge or the other issues run into. And this wouldn't fit in my joiner or my drum sander. So right there, looking great. A little bit of sanding and that thing's gonna be perfect. This is as far as they wanted me to go on this piece. On the other piece, they did want me to create a sign, so we'll get this one out of the way. I am going to put everything back together, so I've got to do cleanup, make sure I get that base table clean before I put the vacuum table and spoil board back on. These are just attached with brass screws down into threaded inserts, the easy lock inserts. I'll link those down in the description below, so if you're looking for a good way to put your table together. I have hit those brass screws a few times, and when I've hit across them with the surfacing bit, never had a problem. There was one time, you can see on my spoil board there, I dropped too low too fast, went right into it and broke the bit. So now we're just doing a simple v-carve pattern on this. To get this lined up right, I actually took a picture of the piece and designed it to the piece and got approval on the layout from the client to make sure that it was perfect before I even started the cut. And because of that, I knew everything was going to play out exactly where I wanted it and looking good.
So overall, the sign turned out amazing. It was pretty cool to be able to plane these down at 600 inches per minute. That is a beast of a machine. Thanks for watching. Stick around for the next video.